Hello to all hi-fi enthusiasts, welcome to Hi-Fi Fever channel. I'm 388. Previously I shared with everyone that making a phono preamplifier is even harder than making a regular preamp. That's because a phono preamp requires a much higher gain, and the signals it needs to handle are also much smaller. So creating a phono preamp that delivers a clean and accurate sound is extremely challenging. In the same vein, the signal cable running from the turntable to the phono preamp is also more demanding than other cables in the system. The cable is even more sensitive because the signals it handles are extremely small. So for everyone, if you already have an ideal combination of turntable, tone arm, cartridge, and phono stage, and you want to further upgrade your vinyl sound, I think changing the tone arm cable can have a very noticeable effect. That's why this time I want to share with you the latest flagship tone arm cable, My Score, from the Canadian brand 1877 Phono. Well, just by looking at the company name, you can already see the word phono in it, so I do have some confidence in them. Of course, with audio equipment, you can't just judge by appearances, you have to listen, right? So if you want to know how this phono cable sounds, keep watching. And if you want to learn more about audio equipment, remember to subscribe to this Hi-Fi Enthusiast channel. Of course, you can also scan the QR code on the screen to become one of our loyal members. Alright, enough talk, let's get to the video. This audio company comes from Canada, and its full name is 1877 Phono, which is quite long and complicated, but actually there's a reason for that. Phono is obvious, it means they make products related to vinyl records. As for 1877, it turns out that's a year. In fact, 1877 is the year when Edison invented the phonograph. So the name is a tribute to him. Since the name is so long and honestly a bit of a mouthful, I'll just call it Subino for short. Speaking of names, some of you might wonder, from the turntable to the phono preamp, why is the signal cable called a tone arm cable and not a turntable cable? In my opinion, most experienced audiophiles refer to this cable as the tone arm cable. So when people mention the tone arm cable, they're talking about the cable that runs from the turntable to the phono stage. So you might also ask, what do we call the wire inside the tone arm itself? Usually we refer to that as the arm tube wire. Now, this Midas Go is the latest flagship tone arm cable released by Phono. Let me open it up and show everyone. So as you can see inside, there's a beautiful wooden box. When you open the wooden box, you see the cable, and it actually comes in a very nice velvet pouch. Plus, there are a lot of cards included as well. So these cards are actually introducing the technology used in this cable as well as some of its features. Now let's take the cable out. The cable itself is quite flexible, and I think it's convenient for connecting even over a longer distance. Also, I noticed there's a very long grounding wire included. I think having a longer grounding wire is actually beneficial because sometimes the RCA input and the grounding point can be quite far apart, so this makes connecting much easier. Plus, the plug on the grounding wire is quite thick and even plated with 24-karat gold. This grounding wire definitely deserves extra points. Now, let's take a look at the plugs. The one I have here is the straight DIN plug for the RCA. Of course, there are other types of plugs available, so you can check with the distributor. I noticed that the casing of this DIN plug is actually made of carbon fiber, and inside there's a Teflon insulator. The contact points are also plated with a thick layer of 24-karat gold. As for this RCA plug, it's actually a locking RCA plug, and you can also see that it's coated with a thick layer of 24-karat gold. Also, with this locking RCA plug, you can actually fine-tune the sound. If you want the vocals to be more focused and solid, you can tighten the plug more when connecting it to the RCA socket. If you prefer the sound from the speakers to be more relaxed and airy, then don't tighten it as much. This is something you can use as a reference. What about the conductors inside even ghost cables? They include this 7-layer gold-plated OCC single crystal copper, as well as this 7-layer single-core pure silver wire. As for the intertwining of the conductors, it uses the factory's unique H-rounder technology. This cable braiding technique allows the wires to be bound even more tightly together, so much so that a 1-meter cable can withstand up to 10,000 bends. With thousands of coils, it can effectively reduce the skin effect, making signal transmission even more accurate. This cable features multiple layers of insulation, including graphene, low-density polyethylene, Teflon, and so on. As for the shielding layer, it includes a copper mesh. A pure silver braided mesh is then wrapped with a monofilament anti-static mesh made by Phono. The cable conductor undergoes a process called ultrasonic 7 thermal processing. After the conductor is drawn into a single wire in a ceramic die, it enters an ultrasonic cleaning chamber, where multiple ultrasonic frequencies are used to remove any residual impurities from the surface of the conductor. After that, the single wires are bundled together and then enter another ultrasonic process. In the second stage of the cable, the voltage is increased to a level just below the critical point of the conductor. The final result is similar to what you'd get after 30 to 40 hours of cable burn-in. Before the insulation layer is applied, the cable undergoes a deep cryogenic treatment at temperatures ranging from -186 degrees Celsius to -196 degrees Celsius. This process allows the pressure between the metal molecules to be released, enabling them to realign neatly, which makes signal transmission even smoother. The sound becomes even more natural.
很爱很爱你，所以愿意舍得让你往更多幸福的地方飞去。很爱很爱你，只有让你拥有爱情，我才安心。
Earlier, I mentioned that the process of making these fan materials is quite unique. So, what's the story behind it? The boss of Subino, William, actually started out as an apprentice in this very fan material factory, so he has a lot of experience in making fan materials. That's why there are many steps in the process that are quite complex and unique. I want to try my best to share them with everyone in a simple way. But honestly, how complicated the process isn't really the main point. The most important thing is the resulting sound quality. So this time, after listening to this flagship level long arm cable from Midas Go, I realized it's really impressive. When I plugged it into my setup, it truly elevated the sound, adding a sense of luxury. And this improvement isn't just in the audio quality, the musicality also left me very satisfied. As mentioned earlier, this satisfying effect doesn't happen the moment you plug the cable into your system. Although the manufacturer says that during production, the cable goes through a process, like being burned in for 30 to 40 hours, when I first plugged it into my system, I actually felt it wasn't quite there yet. It still needed some time before I was truly satisfied. However, there was one thing that stood out right from the start compared to my original cable: the background noise level. The background was noticeably quieter than with the cable I was using before. I could hear more details, and I think this effect is partly due to the use of graphene.
不知道为了什么，忧愁它围绕着我，我每天都在祈祷，快赶走爱的寂寞。
It's said that Phono is the first cable manufacturer to use graphene. Apparently, graphene can provide 100% shielding against RFI and EMI interference. Also, graphene itself has extremely high conductivity, so it doesn't store static current, which means it won't affect the signal transmission of the conductor. It can completely isolate from the air, so even if the cable is used for a long time, the conductor inside won't oxidize, and it won't cause the sound quality to deteriorate. So when it comes to this minor scope, after it enters the right state, even though it was mentioned earlier that you can hear more details and some people might think it's analytical, in reality the sound is actually very full and carries a certain moisture, giving a completely organic feeling. When it plays vocals, the sound is rich with a sense of texture and three-dimensionality, and there's also a kind of liveliness to it. This really enhances the listenability of the whole vinyl setup. Some audiophiles might ask, it's just a single phono cable, so how could it have such a big effect? Well, it might be because the tone arm cable transmits a much weaker signal, so its sensitivity is actually quite high.
Lyden av snö. Jeg kjenner på et savn jeg ikke visste jeg hadde. Lyden av snø. Vann stopper lite grann når du kommer.
There's also an improvement in terms of sound effects. With this tone arm cable, it has enough energy to not only support the length and fullness of the notes, but also to maintain the texture and density in the mid-range, as well as a sense of depth and layering. For example, when I listen to a recording, Hilly Horn playing the second movement of Prokofiev's Violin Concerto No. 1, you can really hear it. As for the violin sound, it's positioned just slightly to the left at the very front, and then you can clearly distinguish the string section, the woodwinds, the brass, and finally the percussion section. That is, for the entire symphony orchestra, each section's sense of depth and layering, the front-to-back positioning, is really clear. It gives you a vivid sense of the scene. This time, it's my first time auditioning Subino's cables, and I have to say, I'm really impressed. It's actually a brand that I used to overlook. Looking back, I realized they actually have a lot of different models for their tone arm cables. Of course, the one I'm testing this time is their flagship series, so naturally it's in the $10,000 range. But it turns out they also have some models that are more affordable. So if you're currently satisfied with your turntable, tone arm, and cartridge setup, don't overlook these tone arm cables. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on Subino's tone arm cables. They might just surprise you. Alright, that's it for today's sharing. Remember to keep watching Hi-Fi Fever channel videos. And of course, you can also click the Superfan button below to buy me a cup of coffee. See you in the next video.